Hey everyone, and welcome to this Tuesday Technique session with me, Jackie Blakemore from So Much More Fun. I'm delighted to be here again with you on a Tuesday, and I have my little friends here for a bit of festive kind of revelry in the corner. I've tried not to overdo it this year, so just a little bit of company there for just to remind you of the season and hopefully that you've got all your decorations done. I did mine this weekend, as you might have seen a post with me on, with a little bit of mulled wine dancing around the living room. So yeah, all very lovely. Okay, so just while I wait for people to come and join us for this live session, I'm just going to run through a little bit of the housekeeping. These sessions come every Tuesday at 12:30 UK time, and they're designed to be between 30 and 45 minutes long, and we're just going to cover some technical kind of aspects of sewing, and we're mostly focusing in this series on fitting, so looking at commercial sewing patterns and how you can get a great fit for your patterns. So if you're watching live, then feel free to say hello, let me know you're here. If you've got any questions, then by all means, drop your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. If you're not able to watch this session live and you're watching it on a replay, then please let me know. Just tag hashtag replay or something like that within the comments when you're watching. And if you've got any questions, again, put them in there and I'll keep an eye out for those too. If you're not on Facebook and you're watching this on the website, then we're recording these sessions and posting them on the website too, so that you can see the videos and you can kind of watch them and replay them at your leisure. So if you haven't kind of got the chance to take any notes or anything today, then you can always go back and watch them on the website. I just want to say hi to my mum because she's here watching and she just said, hi, love the Christmas decorations. Yeah, completely over the top. I need to get some more lights or something kind of going along on here. Okay, so just before we get started, I just want to make a couple of other announcements. So I wanted to thank Lucy at Juicy Glass because today I am sporting accessories from her new Etsy shop. But she would normally be at the Christmas market in Nottingham, but she's not there this year. So she's selling on her new shop and I absolutely love it. These are dichroic glass sort of pendants and necklaces, earrings and so on. And she's amazing. So you can get to her Etsy shop if you're still looking for some Christmas gifts. This is her URL, or go and have a look on her website, juicyglass.com. So today, I also wanted to announce that I've started to offer some technical support sessions. So I know it can be quite difficult when you're sewing on your own, and sometimes you'll hit a snag and you're not quite sure. You don't really want a class or something like that, but you might just want a bit of help and advice. So I've set up on my on the So Much More Fun website the ability to just book a session where you can have some time with me and we'll just either do a screen share or you can do Zoom or WhatsApp, and we can resolve any particular issues that you might have. So kind of like sewing technical support for if you've got a problem with your machine or your stitching's not working, or you've got a fit issue that you can't resolve, then you can book a session. They're kind of half an hour, or you can have an hour session, depending on what kind of problem it is. If we don't resolve the problem, then I'll refund you money. So it's completely risk-free. But if you want to access those sites, then if you go over to the So Much More Fun website and go to the Work With Me page, then you'll see the options there and you can book that. There's a calendar and you can pick a time that's convenient for you. So I just really wanted to try and help you out. If you've kind of got any small issues that you just want to kind of get some help with, or another pair of eyes on something, then this is a way maybe for you to get your answers to your questions. Okay, so we'll crack on with today's session. So in the programme that we've got this week, we're doing Introduction to Common Pattern Adjustments. So I want to kind of lay some groundwork and some foundations for how we're going to approach some of these adjustments that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks. Next week, we're going to be going into lengthening and shortening. So it might seem quite obvious, like on the patterns, you'll often see a lengthen and shorten line, but I want to give you some of my kind of tips and feedback about how you can decide where to make those lengthening and shortening adjustments. and also kind of what to consider when you're making those changes. So particularly if you're lengthening something that's maybe got quite angled side seams, or you're kind of looking for places where you can make the adjustment, and kind of how to tell where you need to make the adjustment as well. So I'm going to give you some hints and tips on that. So be sure to tune in for that next week. And then towards the end of December, then on the 22nd, we're going to be doing basic shoulder adjustments. This is quite a common one for me. I have like a kind of forward shoulder, too much sort of sitting at the computer. If you've got a forward shoulder or a rounded back, then this might be an adjustment that's relevant for you. We're also going to talk about kind of straight shoulders and sloping shoulders and how you can kind of compensate for those. Then on the 29th, we're going to be doing bust adjustments. So most dressmaking patterns are designed for a B cup, although there are some great patterns out there like Cashmerette and Itch to Stitch, and some of the Simplicity patterns I think have some bust cup options. But if they haven't got those included, then you might want to be able to make an adjustment on a pattern that just comes straight out of the packet, or off your PDF that doesn't include that. And so we're going to be talking about some bust adjustments. So for the full program, just go to the website. You'll see it in the tips and tricks section, and you can kind of check out and make sure you book in some time in your diary to remind you if you want to go for those. Okay, so today, like I say, we're going to be doing an introduction into common pattern adjustments. So have you ever, let me know in the comments, have you ever made any adjustments? Do you tend to just use the pattern as it is out of the, out of the packet, and then try and just wear it as it is and just make do? Or have you tried making adjustments and been unsuccessful? Have you had a go and then struggled to know, okay, I know this doesn't really fit me, but I'm not really sure what to do to fix it and kind of how to go about that? So I often end up making pattern adjustments, partly because a lot of patterns are designed mainly for about a sort of 5'6", I think, sort of height, and I'm only 5'2", just about. And so my proportions aren't quite the same as in the standard pattern. And so, as I mentioned earlier, kind of posturally, I'm not great. I don't sit right. I don't stand right. So I also have particular posture issues that, again, can benefit from slight adjustments in the pattern to be able to get them to fit better. And so my mum says she's tried both and been kind of unsuccessful in both. That's not quite true. I've seen you and we've made some good adjustments, so I won't let you get away with that. But yeah, so we're gonna just dive into that. And first of all, I thought it'd be useful to cover what are we trying to do when we make the adjustments? How do you know what's good? What does good look like, and what are you trying to achieve? So the aim of making adjustments is that you really want the garment to hang on your body, usually from the shoulders or from the waist if it's trousers or skirt. You want it to hang with gravity, really. That's in most cases. So if you imagine that you're wearing a woven garment and the fabric is designed to kind of run, the weave goes up and down and then across the fabric. And so to get the best line of that, you want to line up with the fabric itself. So we want to make sure the garment hangs on the grain. And when we design a garment, if it's going to hang from the shoulders, then it's designed with a shoulder slope that is kind of a fixed assumption. So it assumes that your shoulder slopes at about 20 degrees. So, for example, if your shoulder doesn't slope at 20 degrees and you've got very square shoulders, then the garment might not sit right kind of around the neck area because the basis on which it's trying to hang isn't right with your body. Doesn't mean your body's not right. It just means the garment hasn't been designed for that shape. That's fine. You can adjust that. We also want to make sure that we've got enough ease in the garment. And by that, I mean, it's kind of like the difference between your body's size and your body's proportions and the proportions and size of the garment. So you want to make sure that there's a bit of room. So you can see in this top that I'm wearing today, it's not really tightly fitted. And this is a jersey top, so it could be. There is give in the fabric, so it could be skin tight. But you do want, particularly if it's a woven garment without any stretch, you want to be able to move your arms. You don't really want to just sit there like they did in the Victorian age, and just do your little bit of embroidery. You want to be able to move about and, move your arms and legs and so on. And so to do that, we allow a certain amount of difference between the garment itself and the size of the size of your body. So you want to have an adjustment there. And so when you put the garment on, you can kind of have a look at how it's fitting and whether you can move and if there's enough room. And so we want to make sure that you adjust the fit for that. You also want to make sure that all the key points are in the right place. So, for example, if you've got a bust dart or a princess seam like I've got on this top here, so the princess seam, you want the princess seam to be going over your boobs. That's what it's designed for. You don't really necessarily want it to be coming to one side or like kind of down the outside here. You want to make sure that's in the right place. Equally, you want to make sure the waist's in the right place. So you want to make sure that it matches where your own natural waist is. Or you want to make sure that the hips are in the right place. You want to make sure that they're aligning kind of with your body. And then in terms of the vertical, you want to make sure that the centre front is sitting in the centre of your body, or the centre back, and that the side seams are hanging straight down the side. So as you start to pay more attention, you might notice that when you're wearing a garment, actually the side seam starts to move more to the front or to the back, or it kind of curves in a bit of an S shape as it goes down your body. And really the ideal is that you want that side seam to be going kind of straight up and down at the side here. You want any kind of button plackets or anything like that to be going straight up and down the centre front, or the centre back, wherever that feature is. Equally with your sleeves, you want your sleeves to hang straight from the shoulder. So these are all the kind of things that we're going to be looking for when we are when we're making the changes to our patterns. Okay, so how can you check what adjustments are required? How do you know what to change? What are you going to be looking for, and how can you use the garment itself to tell you a bit more information? Well, you can check the fit by like we said, checking in with some of the locations on your body. So you can kind of mark where your bust point is. You can have a look at the shoulders. You can see where your waist is. And I've got a kind of sample here. So we talked about toiles last week and the importance of using a toile. And this is where they sort of come into their own, really, because they can be really helpful. And on this one, so this is the toile for it's the Colette sorbetto top, which is a free pattern that you can get from the Seamwork website. I think just type in Colette, just type in sorbetto, and you'll find the pattern. So you'll notice on this pattern, I've marked up the garment and I've put on these vertical and horizontal balance lines. And so when you have your flat pattern piece, before you start sewing it, what you can do is mark these on. And in this case, I've sewn them with just a kind of basting thread. And what this allows you to do is see where those lines are. And then when you put the garment on, so I tend to just start with the garment just by sewing the shoulder seams. So if I just move back a little bit, hopefully you can see this. If I put this on, then what you're looking for is, even with just the shoulder seams sewn, you really want these lines to be, so you can check your shoulder sort of fitting as well. It's hard to do this in reverse. Check your shoulder fitting as well and see where that shoulder line is sitting. Is it sitting on your shoulder line? You can also then check that these lines, these should be horizontal and vertical as you're wearing the garment. Now, the reason for checking just before you've even got the garment sewn up at the side is because as you start to sew the side seams, you'll see that it starts to adjust the balance. And so we're going to talk kind of about the order in which we make the changes. Now, I'll kind of mention that in a moment. But what you want to do here is you want to be kind of looking to see, even with the garment just with the shoulder seams sewn, is it hanging nicely front and back? Now, I have a rounded back, slightly rounded back at the top. And so what sometimes happens with patterns, not so much on this, but sometimes it kind of sticks out at the back. And if you can see that, and you can start to look and see, are there any areas? Now, I often need a bit of a bust adjustment, and it's a bit unfair kind of having it over this top. But can you start to see this is kind of curving a little bit over the top here? And really, we would want that to be sort of straight. And so I might be thinking about making a shoulder adjustment maybe, or once I've got the sleeve in, it might make this change. But then under the bust, it's fairly straight. So we're okay here. And even when the side seam's going to be sewn, that's going to be fairly straight across here. Equally, even though there is a pleat in the front of this garment, you can see that the vertical lines are hanging, again, quite straight over my boobs. So they're going kind of fairly straight up and down. But if we spotted that, for example, this was kind of squidging in, or there was too much fabric or something like that, then you would start to see the distortion in these lines as you've got them kind of on your pattern. You can also, again, I'm just kind of checking for the bust point here. So with my dart, I'm looking to see, is that level with where my, with where my nipple is, I guess, in this case, and just kind of seeing, is that in the right position before I even start to sew the side seams up, because by that time, you're going to be in a position where you're going to be unpicking it, even though you've kind of already made that. So just, as you go along, try it on and use these lines as a guide. Now, if you refer back to the live that I did last week, then you'll see it works particularly well. There's a really good example on there of me wearing a trouser toile. And on the trousers, you can see that over the bottom, because I've got a pronounced bum, then the lines kind of go outwards, and I need a bit of extra fabric in the side seams because I've got fairly kind of a bigger thigh. So it gives you clues as to where you're going to need to add the extra fabric. And also, when we come to talk about lengthening and shortening, these grids work really well, because if you mark where the bust point is and where your waist point is, and you spot that actually, the bust point's too low or high, then there's no point adding or lengthening or shortening below that, because it's not going to make any difference. You need to be thinking about either moving the dart or changing the length here in this top section of the garment. Also, things like the neckline, is the neckline in the right place, and those kind of things. So it's just really useful to start kind of assembling the garment in stages so that you can be checking the fit as you go along. And there's other videos on the website about how to take pictures from the back and things like that, because the back view can be really helpful, because it's really hard to see if you're trying to twist around and turn around. So if you can set your camera up so that you can do a remote photo, a kind of hands-free photo, or get someone to photograph it for you, then again, you'll be able to see those clues using those lines. Is it curving up over the bottom? Is it kind of, have you got kind of baggy bits? Have you got extra fabric? Those kind of things. Okay, so that's where we would start. There are ways and clues that you can use on the garment itself to tell you a bit about whether it's too big or too small, and where you might need your adjustments. The other things to look for are kind of wrinkles or drag lines. And if it's drag lines, then it usually means that the garment's too tight. There's not enough fabric in that particular part of the garment. And we'll go into this in a bit more detail. I'll have some more examples for you as we go through. But for example, if it's a top that's made without a bust adjustment, and you're a bigger bust than the top allows for, then you'll sometimes see it either pulls. You'll see kind of little pulls here in the center between the boobs, or you might see drag lines up to the shoulder because there isn't enough length to go over the bodice, so to kind of cover the boob area, and so you might kind of see pulls where it's kind of trying to, you sort of see the lines pulling because it's trying to pull the fabric over the top of that curve. And so we'll kind of go into some more examples of how you can read those clues in the garment and on your toile as we come to look at the different adjustments. Okay, so hopefully that's been helpful for what you're going to be looking for. So then, if you've tried to make adjustments and give me some feedback when you're watching this. If you're watching it live or in the replay, then let me know what kind of adjustments have you tried, or have you, does this make a bit more sense? Does adding this grid make more sense in terms of being able to see that and look what you're going to be looking for? And give me some feedback. Let me know. Okay, so then the other thing that I want to cover is about the order in which you're going to make your adjustments. So we had an example a few weeks ago where we were trying to fit a top, and it seemed like the problem was within, I think it was like we thought that the problem was in the back. I think that's what it was, looked like it needed to have the back shortened. But when we undid the side seams and just hung it from the shoulders, like the example that I just showed you there, what we saw was that what was happening is there wasn't enough, that the back piece was too narrow across the back, and it was trying to pull fabric from the front round the back. So by just checking at the shoulder seams, what you're also looking for there is, even without the side seams sewn, are they hanging straight? And if you just pin just the kind of about an inch under the arm, when you do that, you know, how does the rest of the garment hang? Is there enough room for it? And if you just kind of pin it and start to add the pins as you're going down, then it will give you a clue, because sometimes it looks like you might need a sway back adjustment, for example, so you're a bit short and it's kind of pooling in the center of your back. But actually what that might be is that there's not enough fabric over the hip, so it's kind of resting on your hip where it shouldn't be, and then the excess fabric is coming here. So if you add a bit more at the side seam, at the hip line, then it might compensate, and then it will help it to hang further straighter down the back. So the order in which we want to do our adjustments is we're going to start we're going to do the lengthening and shortening first, because that's one of the easiest ones to make. And so you're going to get a sense of where you need to lengthen or shorten the pattern. And that's why just sewing the shoulder seams and just checking those vertical positions are really helpful, because then you'll know, you know, is it the right finished length? Is the waist in the right position? And then you can make those lengthening and shortening adjustments before you even do anything else. Then the next thing you're going to do is work down the garment. So because like we say, it's going to hang from your shoulders, or if it's a skirt, you want to get it kind of fitting around the waist. You're going to work sort of down the garment to make the adjustments. So we're going to start, and I've kind of done the sessions that are following in that order really. So we're going to start with shoulders. You're going to make sure you've got a nice fit on the shoulder. Then you're going to look at the sort of the back, because the back can really influence the fitting on the front, surprisingly. Sometimes we're making loads of adjustments on the front, and actually we just need a bit of extra in the back. So we're going to do the back adjustments, full bust adjustments. And then you can start to get into, you know, any kind of fine tuning around the waist area, anything across the hips. So hips and tummy adjustments, then you would kind of do if you were sort of making a dress, you would then start to look at those areas. And so you do your best to sort of work down the garment. So my mum says she's tried the back adjustment and it's worked well for her, but she still has a problem with it sticking out at the front at the bottom. Is that a bust adjustment that's needed? So yeah, sometimes in the same way that if you've got a rounded back, if you imagine the fabric's going to sort of come over the rounded area, and then it's going to kind of try and go straight down. But if it's a stiffer fabric and you haven't got enough length over the back, then it's going to stick out rather than come straight down. So she's talking about, we do a rounded back adjustment, which allows a little bit more fabric kind of in the center of between the shoulder blades, so that you can go around the curve. But equally, in the same way, if you imagine doing that at the front, if you haven't got enough fabric to go over the front and you've got quite a loose fitting garment, then again what can tend to happen is it might just sort of sit and stick out rather than come down. And what that usually means is either you might need a bit more length, so you might need a full bust adjustment, but it could also be that the darts that you have at the side here, which kind of give that shaping, you might just need to increase the size of the darts a little bit so that you can accommodate more of a curve, rather than if you imagine that the shallower the curve, obviously the more it will look like a straight line. Whereas if you want to create a bigger curve, then again your darts are going to do that, or if you've got princess seam, your princess seam is going to do that. So it might be a case of just fine tuning the dart at the side, and adding maybe a slightly bigger dart to just allow for that curve, the fabric to come round and sit neatly over the front of the bust. But again, we're going to be doing a full bust adjustment later in this series, and what that does do is it allows more width across the bust, because that's where you need it, but it also allows this kind of greater length. But it adds a dart in normally under the arm, and that dart is to sort of give this curved shape so that it can go over over the bust rather than kind of come out and just straight down. So it kind of gives you an ability to fit that better. So we're going to start at the top, because we're going to use gravity to our advantage, and then we're going to make all our adjustments down the garment. So is that something that you think that you could give a try? And if so, then here's some next steps that can get you going. So the first thing I think it's useful to do is just start to have a look at the garments that you've already got. Things from ready to wear, things you bought from the shops, put them on, have a look at how they fit. Is the shoulder sitting at the end of your shoulder, or is it hanging down? Is the side seam, when you stand straight, is the side seam hanging down, sort of vertically down the side of the garment, or is it moving to the front or to the back? Does the sleeve hang nicely? Does the sleeve hang straight down, or do you find that you constantly like pulling the garment forward? If the shoulders, if you've got a forward shoulder, for example, I often find I feel like I should be, or a rounded back, I feel like I'm always pulling garments forward. And so pay attention to things like that, because they'll give you clues as to the kind of adjustments that you're going to want to make as you go through this process. Also look for any kind of wrinkles or drag lines. Is it a bit tight somewhere, or have you got kind of pooling of fabric? If you look at it from the back, are you kind of seeing a lot of fabric in the centre back? Is it kind of grouping? Is it too big across the back? Or if you're different proportions, so if you're smaller on the top and bigger on the bottom, are you having to wear a bigger size on the top? And is that causing it to be too big in this area? If you've got lots of fabric kind of here at the side of the arm, or is the waist sitting in the right place? Are you constantly pulling things up or trying to pull things down? Is it too short in the body, or not big enough over the bust? Because again, that's another consequence. You'll feel like you're kind of constantly pulling things down if there's not enough length over the bust. Equally look at, kind of around the hip area or around the bum area, looking at trousers. I particularly found trousers are a bit difficult to get in the right size, because they either, my waist is smaller at the back, and so they're either quite baggy, or to get them to fit on the bottom, then I often end up with drag lines under the bottom where it's kind of pulling to the inside leg. And maybe and sometimes the outside leg is too long, my outseam's too long, and it looks like it could just do with a tuck up at the side on the outseam. So again, just start to pay attention to clothes that you've already got. And what you could do also is, if you've got a pattern, make a toile, give it a go, mark it up, use the lines that we've talked about. So while the pieces are flat, just draw and sew on those lines, and then start to just assemble the shoulder seams and just see how it's hanging. Send me some photos, get some feedback. I'm more than happy. I'll post it in the Facebook group. I'm more than happy to give you some feedback on those, and start to point you in the right direction. If you've got something that you think isn't really working, then let me know, and we can try and help out and get this process started. So that's everything that I have for you for today, just to kind of give you an introduction to the sort of adjustments that we're going to be making, things we're going to be looking for, and some of the tools that we can use to give us some of that information. So like I say, I'd love to know how you found making adjustments in the past, if you've done it, or if you've not, what's put you off. If there's any particular things that you think in your posture that you struggle with, or fit issues that you have with ready to wear garments that you have, are they too long, too short, too big, too small, anything like that. And then we can focus in on those examples in the upcoming sessions. So next time we're going to be focusing, like I say, on lengthening and shortening. It will be 12:30, same time, same place, here on Tuesday. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Enjoy your mince pies in the meantime. And that's it for me. Bye for now.